My name is Rachel. I'm 34 years old, and I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've always been the kind of woman who believed in true love. I married Noah 8 years ago, and even though we had our ups and downs, I truly believed he was the love of my life. My younger sister, Emily, has always been very close to me. We've had this almost telepathic bond since childhood. She used to visit us often, especially after she broke off her engagement. I thought being close to family was helping her heal. I was wrong. It all started with little signs, messages Noah would hide, strange looks between the two of them, and that gut feeling every woman gets when something isn't right. But I felt paranoid just thinking about it. Emily, my own sister, it felt unthinkable. One night, I borrowed Noah's phone to order food, and I saw a notification pop up in the corner of the screen. It was a message I still think about last night. The name that showed up? Just the letter E. My heart froze. "You for Emily?" I tried to convince myself it could be someone else, but deep down, I already knew. I just didn't want to believe it. From that moment on, I started seeing everything differently. The way he complimented her, the way they looked at each other when they thought I wasn't watching. I needed proof. But more than that, I needed a plan. Because if what I suspected turned out to be true, no one would walk away from this betrayal unscathed. Chapter 2. The confirmation that broke my heart. After that message, I couldn't sleep properly anymore. Noah started to notice that I was acting differently, more distant, but I covered it up with excuses about being tired from work. Inside, though, my mind was racing. I needed proof. I needed to see with my own eyes what my heart was already screaming. I started watching the two of them more closely. I noticed how his tone changed when he spoke to Emily, how she blushed when he complimented something she did, even if it was just a simple recipe. That wasn't normal, but the worst was yet to come. One Saturday, I told him I was going out for coffee with a friend, but in reality I parked my car a block away and waited. I knew Emily would come by, she always did, and I knew Noah would be home. 40 minutes after I left, I saw her car pull up in front of our house. She walked in without even knocking. She had a spare key, one I had given her years ago. My heart started pounding. I waited another 30 minutes, then quietly walked to the side window that looked into the living room. What I saw there shattered something inside me. They were on the couch. He was lying with his head in her lap, smiling like a lovesick teenager. She was gently stroking his hair. It wasn't an innocent gesture. It was intimate, complicit, shameful. I wanted to break down the door and scream, but I didn't. Because in that moment, I realized that confronting them would only give them the chance to lie. And I wanted more than just their excuses. I wanted justice. And for that, I needed silence, patience, and a very well-crafted plan. After that scene on the couch, something inside me died. But something else was born too. A coldness I had never felt before. Of course, I still felt pain. But now, it came with a silent determination. They were going to pay, but I had to be smart. I started remembering old things, little details that didn't make sense at the time, but now felt like ignored clues. I remembered one Christmas years ago, when Emily disappeared for a few hours, saying she wasn't feeling well. Noah vanished around the same time, claiming he had to buy ice. Back then, I didn't connect the dots, but now everything fit. I went to my parents' house and asked to see old photo albums, pictures from family gatherings, trips, birthdays. I started studying the way he looked at her, and how she looked at him. It was there. It had always been there. They just hid it better than I could ever imagine. That night, while digging through some boxes in my parents' attic, I found one of Emily's old journals. She used to write a lot, especially as a teenager. I flipped through it out of curiosity, but when I got to the summer of 2015, my heart nearly stopped. Today was the best day of my life. He said he feels the same, that if things were different, we'd be together. I'll never forget the taste of that kiss, the warmth of that hug. Even if the world never knows, I know he loves me. 2015. Back then, Noah and I were already engaged, and Emily, she was already sleeping with him. I closed the diary with trembling hands. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a story that had lasted for years, a love built behind my back in secret like a slow poison. And I decided right then, in that dusty attic, that if they wanted to play with my life, now it would be my turn to play with theirs. After reading that journal, I realized my pain wasn't enough. I needed a plan, one that would hurt just as much as what they did to me. But to make it work, I had to pretend. I needed them to believe I was broken, lost, ready to disappear. I went back home as if nothing had happened. I texted Emily saying I understood, that love doesn't choose the right moment. And even though it hurt, I forgave them both. She fell for it instantly. She replied with a long, dramatic message, saying she never meant to hurt me, that it was fate, and that she hoped I'd find happiness someday too. Noah, on the other hand, seemed ashamed. He didn't say much, just avoided me. And that was perfect. The less contact, the easier it would be to move behind the scenes. I started pretending I was trying to move on. I posted smiling photos again, went on fake dates set up by friends, showed up to family gatherings acting like I had healed. Everyone believed I was getting over it, including them. What no one knew was that behind that smile, I had already begun collecting every piece of evidence. I got into Noah's old laptop and found old messages, photos hidden in randomly named folders, hotel reservations made on days he claimed to be on work trips. Every little detail went into my secret folder, the one where I was building my perfect deception. But the hardest part was still ahead. I needed to get close to someone who could give me what I really wanted: access to Noah's business affairs. And for that, I had to break a promise I made to myself years ago. I had to talk to his brother again. And that's exactly what I did. The last person I ever thought I'd rely on was Noah's brother, Thomas. They always had a rocky relationship, and I had distanced myself from him after I got married. But Thomas had always been smart. And more importantly, he used to have a crush on me, even before I met Noah. I needed someone inside the family company, someone who could help me uncover everything Noah was hiding. And Thomas was perfect for the job. I sent him a short and direct message. "Hi, Thomas. I need to talk. It's important." He replied within minutes and invited me to meet for coffee the next day. When we met, he looked surprised but also intrigued. I didn't waste time. I told him part of the story, just enough to spark his outrage. I said I needed to find out if Noah was hiding money, cheating clients, or doing anything I could use to expose him publicly. Thomas stayed quiet for a moment, then said, "I always thought my brother was an idiot. But this is low even for him." He agreed to help. And more than that, he actually seemed excited about it. He promised to give me access to internal documents and the list of the company's most important clients. Over the next few days, we began exchanging information in secret. He sent everything through encrypted emails and used a fake name to avoid leaving a trace. I was entering a world I never imagined I'd be part of, a world of calculated revenge. And the more I uncovered, the clearer it became. Noah and Emily were building a life, together on a foundation of lies, and that would come at a steep price. Very soon they would pay for everything. With Thomas's help, I began to put together a real dossier against Noah. With each document he sent me, it became clearer what kind of man I had been with all these years. Forged contracts, duplicated invoices, shady deals with shell companies. It was all there, right in front of my eyes. But what shook me the most was a security camera video Thomas had obtained, showing Noah and Emily together, long before he asked for a divorce. They were in a restaurant, kissing, acting like a couple in love. The date stamped on the footage was almost a year earlier. That's when the anger I felt turned into something even colder. Focus. I printed out copies of everything. I saved files in the cloud, on flash drives, and gave a sealed envelope to a trusted friend. If anything happened to me, it would all be exposed. But there was still something I needed to know. Something I couldn't find in the paperwork. I had to discover exactly what Noah and Emily were planning, because this wasn't just betrayal and theft. It was more than that. That's when I decided to go to Emily's mother's old house. I knew she was often there. Maybe if I got lucky, I'd hear something that would help me put the final pieces of the puzzle together. I waited in my car, parked across the street. After 2 hours, I saw Emily come outside to take a phone call. She was agitated, speaking loudly. I grabbed my phone and started recording. "Yes, Noah. She suspects nothing. Once everything is in your name, we disappear. It'll be like taking candy from a baby." My heart raced. Now I had everything. They hadn't just betrayed me. They were trying to erase me from the story. But they had no idea I was about to rewrite the ending. With the recording in hand and all the evidence organized, I knew I was ready to act. But I wouldn't be impulsive. Not after everything I had already endured. If Noah and Emily wanted to erase me from the story, I would make sure I became the main character in their downfall. The first part of my plan was simple. Pretend to be emotionally destroyed. I started replying to Noah's messages with short, sad phrases, as if I was still trying to make sense of what had happened. He fell right into it. He even sent flowers to my office. At the same time, I hired a lawyer. But not just any lawyer. I chose a woman who had worked with victims of marital fraud and financial crimes. She listened to every detail, and at the end of our meeting, she said, "Rachel, you're not just going to win. You're going to leave them in ruins." Meanwhile, I kept tracking their moves with Thomas's help. He was the one who discovered that Noah was trying to transfer the rest of the assets to an offshore account. It was proof they were planning their final escape. The following week, I arranged a meeting with Emily. I pretended I wanted closure. To find peace, as people say. She agreed, wearing that same fake smile as always. We met at a quiet cafe and I acted fragile. "I just wanted to understand why you did this to me," I said, looking her in the eyes. She shrugged. "Some people are born to win, others to lose. I don't take it personally, Rachel." That was when I realized she truly believed she had already won. And that was when my plan moved to phase 2. 2 days after that meeting with Emily, I officially filed a lawsuit against Noah for fraud, asset concealment, and emotional abuse. My lawyer was flawless. We included audio recordings, messages, bank statements, and even a copy of the deed for the property he tried to transfer to someone else's name. Everything was legal, solid, and ready to explode. But that wasn't all. While the legal action moved forward quietly, I decided to strike the final blow to their egos. I found out Noah and Emily were planning an engagement party. That's right, an engagement. They had barely ended things with me and were already trying to parade their relationship like some kind of trophy. The party was going to be held at an upscale club with a very exclusive guest list. Luckily, a friend of mine who worked in events got me access to it, and that's when my revenge reached its glorious peak. On the day of the party, I sent every guest, including Noah's parents, an anonymous email revealing all the details of their betrayal, screenshots of their intimate conversations, and confirmation that he was being sued for hiding assets and trying to scam me. Chaos broke out before the first glass of champagne could be poured. Some guests left immediately. Others stared at Noah and Emily with disgust. His mother broke down in tears. His father? He said he wouldn't give another cent to that bastard. And me? I was at home, watching everything unfold on social media, with a glass of wine in hand and a smile on my face. They tried to destroy me, but they forgot that when someone loses everything, they have nothing left to fear. Noah's world began to crumble. The public disgrace wasn't the end of it. The legal battle dragged on, and he was forced to testify about the lies, the assets he tried to hide, and the debts he had racked up behind my back. But more than that, his reputation was shattered. The business he ran started to lose clients as news of his deceit spread like wildfire. People started avoiding him. No one wanted to deal with a man whose morals were so easily compromised. Meanwhile, I was on the rise. I didn't let the legal struggles weigh me down. With every piece of evidence I collected, every new revelation I made, I gained strength. I focused on rebuilding my life, diving into my work and doing what I loved. I wasn't going to let a man like Noah ruin my future. It wasn't just about the money either. It wasn't just about showing him I was better than him. It was about teaching him the consequences of betrayal, the kind of pain that lingers long after the initial wounds heal. I hired a private investigator to dig into his finances, finding even more dirt, more debts, more lies. And when I got my hands on all the documents, I made sure to send a copy to every friend of his who had backed him up. His closest allies were no longer his friends. They were witnesses to his fall. Some distanced themselves, while others demanded he pay them back for the money he owed. Then, one night, while Noah was attending a charity event where he hoped to redeem himself, I made one last move. I paid a small fee to have a video of his private life, including some shady dealings and the true reasons behind his wealth, played during a live broadcast. His once promising career as a public figure was ruined by the truth. The video went viral. His apology was humiliating. I watched it from the comfort of my home, surrounded by people who truly cared about me, and I realized I had taken back my power. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about taking control of my own life, my own happiness. And Noah? He was just a casualty of my journey. After everything, I could finally breathe in peace. It was like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Noah was no longer part of my life. Not as pain, not even as a bitter memory. He was just a name from the past, a lesson I had learned the hard way. With time, I rebuilt my self-esteem, my freedom, and my joy. It wasn't easy, but every step was freeing. I went back to doing things that made me happy. Traveling, reading, walking outdoors. I started meeting new people with no rush, no fear. For the first time in a long time, I felt whole on my own, and that was the most important thing. I reconnected with old friends, strengthened my family bonds, and found purpose in helping other women who had gone through similar situations. I turned my pain into strength, my story into inspiration. I would never again let someone silence me or make me feel small. One day, as I walked along the beach, with the sunset ahead and the sound of the waves surrounding me, I realized that my revenge was never about destroying Noah. It was about rebuilding myself. I was no longer the woman who cried over lost love. I was the woman who chose herself. And in that moment, with the wind on my face and peace in my heart, I knew this was only the beginning of the best chapter of my life.